I am Finale Norton. It's August 2nd, and welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. Today's theme is young voters spreading KamaLOVE. Can we just say what a difference a week makes? You just take a look at a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was sort of whispering, will we win? Can we win? And now everything has changed, and it's a bold statement of how much are we going to win? So this is pretty fantastic. So today's show, we're going to have Ty Champion. He's the president of Hampton Roads Young Democrats, Daley Gruen, who's the founder of Fan Out, and Layla Zaidane, who is the president and CEO of Future Caucus. So, and also ending with Maya Luna, who is the Gen Z Tour for Democracy. And we're all very, very excited about that. You hear us talk about it all the time because it's going to be pretty fabulous.
Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia Grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
But before we get started, why don't we go ahead and have LUISA come up and give us an update on what's going on.
Well, it's so good to see you, Finale, and it's good to see everyone else in this Zoom room. I mean, obviously, one of the great things that is going on, as we all know, is all of this great energy that we are feeling across the Democratic Party. And what I want to say is just let's keep it up, right? We talk about this every year about the importance of making voting fun, of making this election process fun. And I think what's been so exciting over the last couple of weeks is seeing how Kamala's been embracing that too, right? And so I really want to remind folks of thinking about how do we do this in a way that like gets people out of their, couches and out of their houses and out of their condos to say, you know what, I haven't done anything recently for an election, but let me get involved this time. So going to share some thoughts that we were talking about at our election working group yesterday, just about what we're seeing and different ways to get involved. So first one is people were saying that as soon as they were showing excitement about Kamala on Facebook, on other places, on social media, they were getting people like getting excited too, right? It's contagious. So share those memes, share those videos, get those out there and keep it up, right? That's the one thing that we want to make sure. This is a long game still. The election is coming, but sadly not fast enough. So we want to keep up all that momentum. Secondly, congressional candidates in Virginia need our help, but so do down ballot races and rural races. So please, as you're thinking about doing campaign work in the state, think about, well, which congressional candidate needs my help, but then do they have any local races I should be aware of? Also, when you're thinking about doing fundraisers, think about those local elections. Could I give some money to my school board candidate? Could I give some money to the mayoral candidate? As we all know, congressional races are really expensive, and giving about $100 to a local race versus $100 to a congressional race, your money goes further locally. And those people are going to tend to not get as much love this year. So please, when you are considering your giving, think local. Canvassing. So one of the things we've been noticing on the doors is that if the candidate who is on the ballot for the Democratic Party is new and people don't know who they are, please make sure you know which Democrats have endorsed them so that you can say, this is the candidate, but you might know this Democrat who is your congressional candidate, or this Democrat who is, higher up in the state party. Use names that people might be aware of because they've seen them on the ballot before as a way to bolster new candidates whose names might not be as seen or heard at this time. Campaigns also, we have been hearing, have not been doing a great job of giving out talking points both on the candidate, but also on the opposition, the person running for the Republican, running as the Republican. And so one, ask campaigns for this. We need to keep asking if we're going canvassing for that information so that you can have more detailed conversations at the door. That being said, if you're not getting it from campaigns, we need to start making it ourselves. We've done it before. We can do it again. So if there are races that you're going to support and you're coming up with some talking points, please share them with us so that we can make sure they're getting out to others as well. One of the biggest talking points that's working well at the doors is Project 2025, but of course we all know it's complicated. And so having talking points on that is helpful as well, just to be able to make those connections. So when you're at the doors and you say, what are issues that you care about? You can say, oh, interestingly, Project 2025 is completely against that, or is really trying to undermine that, right? So how are we making sure that we're making this relevant for the people that we're talking to as voters? Then finally, banking early votes matters, and we're getting closer and closer to early voting. So one of the things that we did last year that we want to like double down on this year is planning fun events for voting on day one. We already have fun plans in Loudoun County and in Arlington County, but I want to encourage everyone to be thinking about how are we getting voters out, making it fun, having social events around it, so that this, again, is keeping that momentum up throughout the fall election cycle. So I'm going to put a couple of opportunities to get involved in the chat. First, I'm going to have opportunities to talk to voters, including canvassing, texting, and phone banking. Then we've got 2 upcoming meetings. Our voter readiness working group meets next week on the 7th, and our Virginia Grassroots Coalition meets on August 18th. And then there's just some really great events this week, which I'm going to put in the chat as well. So if you have time to get involved, there's way more on the calendar this August than there typically is, which again tells us that people are really, really jazzed and ready to get on the doors and talking to voters and thinking about this election. So that's what I got.
Awesome. Sounds great. Sounds busy. No wonder we haven't seen you. You've been so busy.
I know. There are a couple things going on. It's cool.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, LUISA, I love what you said about the Project 2025 and being able to talk about that. And hopefully we'll put in the chat. There's been some great documents that's been prepared on Project 2025. So there is no shortage of information for people who want to know about it. Right, Carrie?
Right. And I'm so glad you mentioned the opposition, because that is definitely something as grassroots groups, we can get a little dig deeper into that, because there are a lot of things in terms of opposition that we can say that candidates might not feel comfortable saying. They don't want to spend a lot of time on it. They want to get their credentials out there. So it's really helpful. It's part of the freedom of being in grassroots groups that we can do what we want to do. So it's always nice to have that, especially down here in CD2 with Jen Kiggins. We got a lot of material to work with. So I'm excited about getting some of that information too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, LUISA. So now Carrie and I will get a chance to do a little bit of a chat. And Carrie, this is perfect because we were having a conversation about this, about, not wanting to put signs in the yard because maybe we didn't feel so good about it. And we were just saying, okay, we should be really proud to put our signs in our yards and everywhere else to be a Democrat at this point. Because if you were to think about it, this is what I say. Every time I see a Jen Kiggins sign, I say to myself, oh, that house has a sign of somebody who wants to take away reproductive rights. And
it is definitely a symbol.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the symbol for taking away reproductive rights. It's the symbol for taking away our ability to choose. It's a symbol that says you're okay with banning books. It's a symbol that says you're okay with cutting Social Security. It's a symbol that says that you're okay with taking away people's right to vote. It is a symbol that you are okay with not having common sense gun legislation. So I just think whenever you see those signs, we should remind ourselves that's what that sign means. And we should tell our friends and family every single time they see one of those signs, that's what you should think about.
Right. Who remembers the day when the elections were over, you took your signs down, right? Yeah. For the most part, that's the way it used to be. And now these days, you got people wearing MAGA hats to church. So it's a whole new ball game now. I mean, people are very bold to just put their racist, misogynistic opinions out there, and yet we're the ones embarrassed because we want to protect gay marriage, right? What has happened, right?
Yeah, but you
So
know what?
I think that trying to embolden ourselves, trying to embolden other grassroots activists is super important. And I just feel like a big boost from Kamala because people are wearing the cat shirts, people are getting excited about it again. This is fun. It's fun to see this. It's fun to reclaim the language. It's fun to reclaim our place in politics in terms of making it fun. So, and getting these grassroots organizations more involved because they have been 170,000 people signed up as volunteers in the days after Kamala announced, got the presumed nomination. It's just been fantastic to see, and over $200 million are being raised. Suddenly, we've all been at this. Some of you much, much longer than 2017, but a lot of us since 2017. Suddenly, everybody's talking about grassroots. I feel like Cinderella at the ball.
Yeah, I do too. I absolutely do. It's really funny. I was at lunch yesterday and we were having a conversation and I mentioned Vice President Harris's name. And it was just as the waitress came over and she was like, and so there is this buzz around it, and we have an opportunity to demonstrate how proud we are about the opportunity to stand for something that's really good and happy and joyful. And so I
Right.
think
So
that's the beauty of it.
get thee to the Badass Boutique and pick up your merch because there's plenty of stuff. I know some of the Kamala shirts kind of hard to come by right now, but I know that we've uploaded some models on the Badass Boutique. So everybody should get up there and find your perfect Kamala cat lady shirt. And get out there and be proud, be loud, be proud. It's our turn. It's my turn. I'm going to wear a cat lady shirt to church.
Well, good. Wear it. And I think the other thing that makes this so great today is that we have all of these young folks that we're going to talk to who get to tell us about their KamaLOVE, which is KamaLOVE. And so Ty Champion of the Young Democrats, Daley, the founder of Fan Out, Layla, Future Caucus, and then of course Maya. And I think what I love about this is that these two guys, Daley and Layla, are both nonpartisan in terms of how they think about how we look at politics. And I think that's very, very exciting. And as Ty would say, he is unapologetically democratic. So we have all of these things to talk about. So I'm going to let you get started with your conversations about, KamaLOVE.
Fantastic. Well, we got a big purveyor of KamaLOVE here with us today, Ty Champion. He's been busting his butt down here in Hampton Roads, putting the Hampton Roads Young Democrats basically back together. Ty, welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. We're so happy to have you, and we're very happy to hear about all the work that you're doing, kind of getting this off the ground for the most part in Hampton Roads. So we were talking the other day, and you had mentioned that a lot of the student groups fell apart after COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening and what your vision is to get started?
Yes, I can. First of all, thank you for having me, Carrie. So my plan to re-engage students really focuses a lot on targeting what are students talking about? What are the issues that matter to young voters? And bridging that gap between what are their expectations and the people who are in party leadership. So, for example, a lot of young people are very, very, very concerned, obviously, about the Dobbs decision. A lot of young people are very concerned about the Israel-Palestine conflict. And a lot of people are definitely now more concerned with what's going to happen with student loans since the Republicans sued and blocked Joe Biden's SAVE Act in its entirety. So it's all about talking about the issues that matter to young people and getting out of that message of you have to come out and vote because if you don't vote, they're going to take away your ability to vote.
Has that message been resonating? I know you've had a big uptake since Biden stepped down.
Yes, it has been resonating a lot, partially in the fact that President Biden did decide to no longer pursue his reelection bid. I can tell you membership in HRYD has gone up 22%. In the day, wow. It hasn't even been a full month since that announcement. We have gotten 12 new members in 2 weeks, which in my opinion is phenomenal. Wow. But it's about the messaging. We've pivoted as a party on how we message our candidate, and we're focusing a lot more on what can we do and what will the future under a President Harris look like. And that is really picking up steam with young voters.
What do you feel is really fueling a lot of the enthusiasm on the socials that we've been seeing? What is making that happen? I mean, we were just talking about being bold. I was joking the other day about how young people on socials tend to overshare, and they're out there and they're sharing. What's fueling that? What's getting them emboldened to share their political views now, not just their ideas about fashion, social, other, like you said, the issues.
Because we're finally striking a chord where the messaging is hitting who it needs to. Part of it is the fact that we have people like Charlie XCX doing the social influencing and making politics cool again. Like, I'll admit, I sit on the millennial Gen Z cusp, so hearing that Kamala is brat, I admit I was taken a little bit aback. I'm like, what do you mean? But the amount of enthusiasm and lime green and black text that I have seen flooding everywhere since that tweet went out, that's part of what has gotten politics to be trendy again, and it's making it easier to have these conversations. And plus, you have to talk about those local issues too. People think all politics is, the president and Congress, and it's like, no, the fact that your textbook still says George W. Bush is the president, that's a political decision. You have to energize those people when they're young and keep them moving.
So you were talking about helping, and a lot of folks on this call trend a little older than you are, just a little. We probably had to Google brat earlier this week just to figure out what the hell was going on. We understand that your movement is led by young people, right? And I am not young. So in terms of helping, what can the folks on this call, what can we do to help the young leaders that are in our community, like you, pulling people together and organizing? What is our role?
So your role is the fact that you sit at tables and in rooms that we don't. For a while, young people have been shut out of the process, but now we're seeing that this is a very critical group that we need to tap into. So first and foremost, invite young people in and give them a seat at the table and take them seriously. That is the biggest way that you can help young people get involved and stay involved, is if they feel like they have buy-in and they have ownership of something. The second thing that I would say that you should do, definitely if you yourself are an organization that has a very specific demographic and you're not really appealing to young people, reach out to youth-led organizations and other younger organizations that are doing the work, and do it as a partnership, because they have an audience that you may not have, and you have an audience that they can't reach. So it's about finding that cross-platform where you both can stand, as people say, you can stand on business together. And then last but not least, if you really feel up to it, donate to young organizations. HRYD, we take donations because it costs money for us to put our website up. It costs money for us to have, all of our organizing. It costs money for us to do our fundraisers. So even if it's just like $5, give a little bit,
I love that idea. Yeah, I love that idea, especially since you are reaching out to folks that don't have a lot of expendable income. When I was a student, I certainly didn't. So I love that idea. And we are in a position to help with that. And we are in a position to partner. And I'm so glad you brought up partnering, because you and I did talk about that a little bit the other day as well. So, a lot of our grassroots groups that have stayed together, it's because they have a common identity, right? And I can honestly say, I love what Red Wine and Blue is doing, and groups like KOVA Coalition, and because, we are looking to attract the suburban woman, right? So the idea of partnering really, in my mind, when you're talking about trying to recruit, right? We're recruiting new members. Like, I'm not going to recruit someone like you to be in my group. I mean, I know my demographic, right? But
Right.
we
would invent
have
such a thing?
partnerships are really,
Oh,
really key.
all right.
In terms of co-sponsoring, for example, the event that Maya's going to talk about in a little bit that's happening at Virginia Wesleyan on Tuesday. So I love it. And the partnerships, of course, they serve both sides. Anyone
Yes.
who's done community organizing can tell you that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's everybody gets a little something out of it. So and building that trust certainly starts with inviting people for a real seat at the table, not just something that looks good on your Insta. It's a real partnership. You're invited to do more than just show up. So I was interested, and I guess the other thing is that in terms of recruiting, I know I was joking about this event this Tuesday at Virginia Wesleyan. I know you're aware of it. It's a youth, it's a Gen Z tour to save democracy. I thought about making flyers that say, invite your mom to join COVID Coalition, to try to partner with them. So
Hey,
yeah.
that works because it's about finding what messaging that resonates with your base and partnering with other organizations to help spread that message. It's really about finding that symbiotic relationship. And it just takes having a simple conversation just like this.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. So I guess one of my big takeaways, I think, from this conversation and the one that we had previously is that, it's not anyone asking you to take on new young members into an organization that doesn't really authentically need them or have a place for them, but really it's the partnering up and encouraging and supporting and empowering and bringing them in. So I really value that. And I think that everything that you're doing to kind of reinvigorate that is really super important. And I hope everybody on this call today, I hope you guys all reach out to the local Young Democrats in your area and ask them in genuine ways how you can help fund them, invite them to the table. Because I have a feeling that your 25% uptick is not going to end because you're doing great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And likewise with COVID Coalition, you guys, I definitely foresee a lot of new members. And if you guys have any members that are 35 and under, feel free to let them know. They can also be a member of HRYD and I'll do the same.
Great. Awesome. Well, we have this innovative, not just partnership, but we have an innovative way to engage more youth voters and more youth activists. And that is what Daley is doing with Fan Out. So we are going to bring him up from this organization, Fan Out. He is the founder. Daley is here to tell us a little bit about his organization, Fan Out. I'm going to ask you to just describe a little bit about how it is you have developed this innovative way to recruit young people to be more active in getting their friends to vote. Hi, Daley.
Hey, sure thing. Hey, Carrie, and hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'll tell you a little bit about what Fan Out is and how we got here. I am a former political organizer. Some notable campaigns I've worked on are the Ossoff and Warnock campaigns, the Sarah Gideon campaign against Susan Collins in Maine. And when I was doing that as a field organizer, I was seeing what I'm sure many of you see when you knock on doors and make phone calls, which is that you can do an hour shift and maybe talk to one person, which is great and it's helpful. But the most effective thing we can do is relational organizing, where you turn out your friends and family to vote. That said, it was really hard to get folks to do that, to expend their social capital on reaching out to friends to talk about politics. So initially was trying to think of ways to get people to do relational organizing, and that kind of sat over here. And then the Taylor Swift Ticketmaster debacle happened, where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were trying to get Taylor Swift tickets all at one time. They crashed Ticketmaster. They waited in line for 8 hours. They drove prices up to $28,000. So there was a lesson there that these fandoms will move heaven and earth to get access to their icons and their idols. So I thought, can we bring them together? If we're trying to motivate people to do relational organizing, and there's this group of people who will do anything for access to their stars, Can we have them do relational organizing in order to get that? So that's the idea, is we are raffling off incredible prizes to people who help their friends vote. And so how does that work is if we have tickets to see Taylor Swift in Toronto on November 23rd, and you have been trying to get your Taylor Swift tickets for months now, years even, and this is your last chance. You can go to the contest page, get your personalized link, be it a URL or a QR code, and then you go out to your network with that code. You can share it as an Instagram story, you can text it to friends, or you can just bring that QR code to your next party and recruit your friends to check their voter registration, which would earn you raffle entries, or to create a voting plan, the when, where, and for whom am I voting. And that too will earn you entries. The more friends you recruit to vote, the higher your odds that you go get to see Taylor Swift.
So every time I share that, right? So every time I share that, I'm getting entered into the raffle, right? That's the idea?
Exactly. Okay. Yep. So if I get Carrie, you and Heidi and Ty to check your voter registration, I've just earned myself entries into the raffle. And we have kind of gamified it a little bit further, which is we've also created an extra incentive to get new voters into the electorate. So if I get you and Heidi and Ty to check your that's great. I knew you were going to vote anyways. So that just gets me one entry. But if you're a brand new voter, that gets me 10 times the entries. So that way you're going out and you're searching for young folks, new folks, underrepresented folks to bring into the electorate. And then one last thing is we have one more sort of gamified thing, which is that you get 2 extra points for every friend or acquaintance who you recruit from a battleground state. So if they're one of the Cook Report listed battlegrounds in the Senate or president, you get 2 bonus points to make sure that you're calling up that cousin in North Carolina to make sure they're registered as well.
So when you were testing this and putting this together, did you just have discussions about why it is that people are willing to share a picture of what they're about to eat for lunch, but they don't want to share their opinion about politics? Did you guys talk about this?
I think politics is inherently considered divisive, of course, right? Because the people who are voting for your rights are your neighbors. And so bringing up stuff that is that deeply personal is always going to trigger a bit of a fear response. That's why we're bringing in this extra incentive, but it's also why we're going for fandoms. Fandoms are groups who already have an in-group and have a culture, and I think are less afraid of sticking out and putting their, stepping on anyone's toes because they know they have their fandom with them.
Right. I think a lot of within the millennials, I know we're talking to Gen Z later, but I know the millennials, they're all the Harry Potter kids that would dress up and sleep outside of the bookstores. You got to love those millennials, right? Was that you? Was that you?
Yeah.
Exactly. So they're kind of used to putting themselves out there. I think just getting it, I think that by kind of entering into this fandom thing and giving them these incentives will hopefully get them to adopt that same kind of enthusiasm for something a little more important. Right?
Totally. Exactly. Right. It's a come for the tickets, stay for the democracy. Come for the fun, stay for the democracy. Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. So we asked you the other day, so how are you going to measure success of this thing? How do we know when it's fully launched, and what does the ideal adoption look like for you?
I can't say that we have specific benchmarks. This is an experiment. No one has ever done this exact model before. Of course, there's been pop culture and celebrity influence in politics for a long time, But the way that looked was you have, let's say, a Beyonce saying, make sure you get out and vote, which is really awesome. But the ceiling on that is relatively low because you can only have those Beyonce fans, that subset of Beyonce fans, hopefully turning into voters. For us, we're turning that subset of Beyonce fans into organizers. So that's kind of a more unlimited cap on potential. Is instead of just one-to-one, you turn those super fans into super organizers, where hopefully the biggest Beyonce fan in the world, right, goes out and registers 100 of their friends. So measuring success is we don't quite have a hypothesis yet. We're hoping that we can prove that this is a model that works.
Right. I love the idea of the super fans into super organizers. I mentioned the other day, what I like to say is, if you can have a bake sale, you can run a voter registration drive, right? You can show up at the school board meeting for your kid's school. You can go to city council meeting and advocate for public policy change, right? So these are transferable skills, right? So the idea that someone can generate all this enthusiasm around their favorite group or their favorite artist, those are organizing skills. You told a funny story about your niece. So I wanted you to share.
Oh yeah. So when Taylor Swift announced that she was doing more Eras Tour stops, so a second leg of the Eras Tour, I was at a wedding and my niece ran up to me and said, "Did you hear the news that Taylor Swift is doing more tour stops?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And she said that she is getting every adult in her life to get on the wait list for tickets. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're an organizer. You're organizing people to towards this end. You would make a great organizer. So that's what I'm saying. I think that fandoms kind of inherently have this shamelessness built in that makes for a really good organizer, because that's kind of the bread and butter of what an organizer is shamelessness.
Right. So how can we help? I always love to ask that question. So you've got some of I know that Heidi's dropping some links in the chat, but if people want to help you, recruit prizes, they know they got an in with some prizes, or maybe they want to help out, what should they do?
That's a great point. Yeah, actually, so starting with recruiting prizes is there's kind of a limitless number of contests that we can do. All I have to do is throw up a contest page and I can get you that link. So if you have access to a really cool prize that has a fandom that would go kind of nuts for it, definitely reach out to me. You can reach out through the organizers of this event. But the second thing is that there's no age limit to participating. We try to get a real diversity of prizes. So we have everything from tickets to The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, or if you're a Bravo fan, we have tickets to Watch What Happens Live. If you're a basketball fan, we have VIP courtside experience with the 76ers. So we have a real variety of prizes that I'm sure would appeal to organizers of all ages, but also I know you all have kids and nieces and nephews and grandkids who would go nuts for some of these more youth-oriented prizes, and get them on board. Yeah.
Really the question is, do you have an activity for the childless cat ladies? I'm asking for a friend. Just I'm putting it out there.
So not to stereotype, but I think that Watch What Happens Live is a pretty good childless cat.
Sweet. All right. So there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone. I even those of us who've been at this for a very long time could use a little prize every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Little short-term success measure. Right. So fantastic. So anything someone had brought up sort of hashtags that you're using to help spread the word. You want to share what you're putting out there?
Yeah, we don't have any specific hashtags to fan out necessarily, but because we're trying to appeal to these particular fandoms, sort of piggybacking on their hashtags.
Every time. Yeah, every time. That they probably, you can coattail on them quite a bit, I'm sure.
Totally.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Daley. Good luck with everything. I look forward to entering some contests and maybe winning something.
Thank you all.
So
Great.
Carrie, that was a great discussion, and I love that, and I particularly love that there's a little bit of something for everyone because although we love our young Gen Zs, at the same time, it is an and, right? So in order for us to make this work, it requires all of us figuring this out together. We used to have this saying that no one of us is as smart, as innovative, as creative as all of us together. So I'm glad that there is an and for us in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Also speaks to what Ty was talking about. It's like the
Yeah.
importance of working together and bringing everyone to the table. You
Yeah.
know, there's going to be somebody else with a fantastic idea like Daley's who's going to show up and educate all of us about that. So that, you know, I mean, it does take that. I mean, just kind of studying all kinds of traditions, right? All kinds of wisdom traditions. When you study the wisdom traditions, the whole notion that not any one person owns the wisdom, right?
Yeah.
We get it together. We come
Yeah.
about it together. We all contribute. So
That's
for
right.
sure.
I particularly love, and you guys know, this would not be a Friday Power Lunch if I didn't quote Linda Hersham. And so I always go back because history is what saves us, because that is where you sort of get the most wisdom from, what things have been done. And they were able to do it all with very, very little resources. So we have all of these resources. And you know, lately I've been thinking about how do we get people engaged in this process. And Mary McLeod Bethune, and I think we probably all have to sort of reset ourselves in terms about how we think about engaging in this process. And one of the things she says is that engaging in civic activities is both a burden and a responsibility, but it's the price that we pay to get to live here. And every single one of us has to pay that price. And, you know, quite frankly, sometimes it's just not all that bad. It's a good thing when good results come from it, which brings us to our next guest, Layla Zaidane, who is the CEO and president of Future Caucus. And so we're going to talk about Future Caucus, and we're going to talk about the audacious mission that you have to activate young leaders to bridge the partisan divide and transform American politics. What an easy task.
Yeah, just a small thing. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about Future Caucus.
So let's talk about it. So let's talk about this mission because it really is pretty audacious. And I want to say for the group again that it is a nonpartisan a responsibility that you have here in terms of how you engage and bring people together. So let's talk about that a little bit, as well as some of the successes that we'll talk about down the road.
Yeah, so I love just the flow of this conversation because there's so much I want to respond to that Ty and Daley shared. And sort of on this notion of what Ty talked about, infrastructure, connecting young people to one another. And then what Daley shared, sort of the power that young people bring to add a different quality to politics. I think that's what you see here in Future Caucus. So the first thing to know is we work with elected officials after they get elected. So there's a ton of amazing groups and people, you're on this call, that work really hard to get people elected. There's not a ton of resources put into what happens next. How do we help them govern effectively? And the lack of results is frankly what's getting a lot of people frustrated with politics, with government, and losing trust in democracy and our institutions to deliver outcomes on a whole bunch of issues that we care a lot about. And so Future Caucus was founded to really catalyze this new generation of millennials and now Gen Z who are just stepping into political office to say, what would happen if we helped you build relationships along a generational identity and not a partisan identity? How would that trust, how would those new connections enable you to then start working on policy together? And what we did was launched a bipartisan caucus in Congress, open to anybody who's 45 years old and younger, which, like, technically is not a millennial, but we don't check IDs, and if maybe if your skincare routine was good enough, we let you in. But it was bipartisan, and the results were pretty immediate. They started working on legislation together. They started becoming authentic friends, and they started being able to go back to their voters and say, look at what I'm able to deliver for you. And since then, we've gotten phone calls from 34 states. We have chapters in 34 state legislatures now, and have worked with 1,800 young elected officials to help them just be more effective lawmakers and help to restore that trust in democracy.
So I imagine that there has to be a formula that you guys sort of think about in terms of doing this, because it doesn't feel easy when you're sort of watching what's happening day to day. So what kind of formula did you guys sort of create to sort of help bring this along?
Yeah. So much of politics is organized around a deficit mindset and sort of breaking things or just destroying things. And what we discovered was actually bringing an abundance mindset and having an asset framework is so much more energizing and so much more powerful. And you bring people to a cause by inspiring them about what's possible and what you can bring to it, not by sort of talking about breaking, really talking about building. We had a conference last week here in DC where we brought 100 young elected officials from across the country and across the political spectrum. And our opening speaker was Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, who was talking about just power and politics. Probably not the most bipartisan speaker we could have chosen, but I think people really enjoyed hearing from her. And she said something: people don't elect you for what you've done, they elect you for what you're going to do. And so that formula for us of bringing people together around what would be possible when applying this generational capacity to innovate, or just the different lived experiences that millennials and Gen Z have had that maybe is not already an important part of the conversation, but that they could add to. Not saying that sort of there's other important concerns across generations that aren't also important to be discussed, but how could young people sort of bring that to the conversation? And for us, that's been super, super powerful in getting things done and transcending the polarization that otherwise creates a ton of gridlock.
Yeah, it absolutely does. One of the most well-known Gen Zs who's part of this process is Max Frost from Florida, right? So you guys are pretty excited about him. My question is, how do you guys sort of measure the success of this? And so that means in terms of legislation that these guys get to put through. So how would you talk about that and the success of what actually gets done?
Yeah. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to change the culture of policymaking. And right now, I think we would all agree it's pretty broken. What we want to see is a healthier civic flywheel where voters feel like they belong and where elected leaders are responsive to the needs of their constituents. And so there's really four main ways that we try to do that. One is by just connecting people to each other across divides. For us, often partisan, but also like geographic, rural, urban, making sure that people are building those relationships. So we measure that. Two, they actually don't get a ton of professional development or leadership development when they step into elected office, certainly not at the more state and local levels. I love Louisa said earlier, like, don't forget about your local candidates. It's so true. And so sort of measuring how many young people were able to actually go through that training to teach them skills like, how do you negotiate effectively? How do you communicate with your constituents more productively? How do you actually get things done? The third thing that we do is actually connect them around policy. And Ty mentioned a bunch of policies that young people care about. It's actually just a bunch of issues in general that are like important things across generations: the economy, cost of living, healthcare. All of that matters to people who are young and older. And so giving them the connections to each other who have done legislation and been successful, and then connecting them to experts as well. We sort of measure those connections and then the outcomes. And then the last thing, which is really important, maybe something this group can help with, is we want to tell their stories. I think people get frustrated when they don't see the politicians that they elect actually listening to them and doing what they said they were going to do. How can we as Future Caucus help uplift these young leaders within their communities and nationwide to let people know that that democracy can deliver results, that it's not worth throwing in the towel and, it's not choosing between voting for this person or voting for that person. It's voting or the couch. How do we convince them not to sit on the couch, but to show up because we're showing them results? And that communications program for us is also a really important part of the strategy.
It really is awesome. And so any elected official that is below the age of 45 and under can actually join and be a part of Future Caucus. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And so each chapter in every state is led by a bipartisan duo. And then one of their main jobs is they're organizers within the legislature. Like Daley said, maybe your niece one day will be one of them, but they have to recruit the other members of the legislature to say, hey, do you want to be a part of this vehicle that connects us across party lines? We get together socially. I'll give you an example. In Kansas, they launched the caucus, and then just to start to get to know each other, they decided to go axe throwing and have drinks. I think they first did the axe throwing and then had the drinks, and they did not throw the axes at each other. But the role of, I think, the Future Caucus chapter leaders is really important in organizing their cohort to get together and start to build those relationships and then actually do policy.
That's pretty awesome. And just finally, the amount of policy so far that's been pushed through by Future Caucus members has been what?
Well, here's something that I want to share is that across the country, only about 25% of state lawmakers are young or under the age of 45, even though population wide, we're probably 43% of the population. So 25% are state lawmakers, but they've written, passed, and had signed by their governor 40% of all bipartisan legislation that has been enacted. So
Okay.
I think there's this real energy and frankly, kind of impatience maybe from young people to play sort of games. They're rolling up their sleeves. They're getting things done. They don't care who they have to do it with, but they want solutions. And they're actually overperforming when it comes to building the coalitions to get it done. So I think part of the work is continuing to build that infrastructure, continuing to set young people up to demonstrate that democracy can deliver results, and ultimately build trust in our institutions again across the country.
That is fantastic. And you'll put in the chat what we can do to support Future Caucus, because I'm sure that there is something that all of us on this line can do to support Future Caucus.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll say one thing is I'll drop this link, which is a story bank. We do interviews and we do video content and storytelling just when you're getting really depressed. And I don't think this is a week where anybody is feeling down. I think there's a lot of energy right now, but we do try to capture the positive stories of when things go right. And I think if each of us were able to tell, share, and identify more of what's going right, our country would feel I think a lot more connected to the things that democracy can deliver.
Thank you so much, Layla. Appreciate having you here. Hopefully you'll be able to stay for the after chat. I'm sure there's lots of questions for you, so we'll cross our fingers that you can stay. So, Carrie, you've been talking a lot about this tour for democracy, so we want to keep talking about that. Has Maya been able to join us so that we can talk about it?
She's in the call. Hi, Maya.
Wonderful. So, guys, we have Maya Luna with us, and she's going to give us an update on the Virginia Beach stop of the Gen Z Tour to Save Democracy, which is going to be happening on August 6th at Virginia Wesleyan College. So let's talk.
Yeah.
Maya.
So Maya, as many of the folks on this call, we had Sam on the call probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this group has a general idea of what the Tour to Save Democracy is. Why don't you just give us the lowdown, and how's it going so far? You guys have been on maybe 4 stops?
Yeah. In case anyone's not familiar, the Tour to Save Democracy is this coalition effort of between a lot of Gen Zers Two, get out the youth vote, and more importantly, show young people that their voices matter and that they can also have the same strength and power than like the average congressperson, right? As someone was saying before about organizing, organizing is just the ability to get people together. And if other Gen Zers can see what we can do when we get together, it inspires that confidence. There's not a lot of representation when it comes to young people. So it is extremely important to show them not only that it's possible, but it's possible to do it in a healthy way. A lot of young people move into activism. But move into activism in this kind of extremist way, right? They're very vitriolic. There's this hatred of the system. So by showing them that we can work within it, we can do something.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we're making a grand exception. We usually ask that our guests not call in from a car, but since you're on a tour to save democracy, you kind of have no choice, right? You're touring America. It kind of fits. I think it's very appropriate that you're calling in from a car. So tell us what to expect on Tuesday. What are these stops looking like?
Oh my God, they have been amazing. From our stops in Texas to our stops in California to our stops in Wisconsin. Each one of them have such a unique flavor of the region. It's really important for us to, listen to local community leaders and tell us what their community needs, what their community is interested in. I've been working alongside Carrie and a lot of other people on different campaigns and working in different organizations here in Virginia Beach to make sure that we're really listening to the problems around us.
Yeah, I was excited to see you guys are filming that documentary, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia. It's produced by Alan Iverson, who's from Newport News. So he's from this area. So that was a really cool local tie-in you guys were able to throw in, plus inviting sort of local entertainers. And we kind of understand what your messaging is. You are partisan, right? You've got a message, right?
Yeah, and our message is it's simple. This election is important. This election is for our futures, whether it is gun violence, whether it is climate change, whether it is abortion rights. All of it comes down to this election. And if we don't do something right now, we'll never have the chance again.
Great. So we're going to be out there. KamaLOVE Coalition is going to be registering voters at your event. A lot of other nonprofit grassroots groups are out there, and some candidates are going to be speaking on Tuesday. So thanks for the update, Maya. We're going to run along. We do want to just remind everyone, just give us the details one more time. It's Tuesday night, August 6th.
At Virginia Wesleyan University.
Great. We'll be meeting outside the Good Auditorium and then going in for the screening around 3:30. And then the entertainment kicks off a little later with the speaker starting at 5:30. So if you guys are in the area, I know that Sarah is making a road trip. She'll be reporting in from her car shortly. But she's going to make the road trip down. I know a lot of people are planning on coming. So if you're in the area on Tuesday night, we'd love to see all of you guys. Thanks, Maya. Good luck. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Thanks, Maya. So, Carrie, it's up to us to close out this show. So there's a lot of things we want to talk about quickly. But first of all, yeah, I know it's a lot. But I wanted to just throw out about the week of action that starts on August 25th. It's at 7:00. It's a live program on Zoom. The speakers are being lined up, but they're going to be pretty amazing. It is the Empowered Women Rally the Vote. And so it's hosted by Network Nova. And as you all know, ain't no stopping us now. So it's going to be a fantastic show. And then we'll have activities for you guys to participate in all through the week. And KamaLOVE Coalition is going to be doing stuff too, right, Carrie?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I encourage all my grassroots friends out there to get your group together and schedule some things. So KamaLOVE Coalition is going to be doing some peer-to-peer text banking that week, the week of the 25th. I think we've scheduled it the other night. So it's really important. I want everyone to attend the call on that Sunday night. There's a special screening of a documentary on the Equal Rights Amendment that week that's being screened. But every grassroots group, I would love to see put in the chat or start filtering it in the chat for the next few weeks. I really want to see all the grassroots groups hosting events that entire week. The Women's Week of Action. We just want to get a lot of energy out there. Again, put something together and then take some pics, submit them up to Network Nova and let us see what you're doing to celebrate the Women's Week of Action.
That's right.
And join us on that call. It'll be a lot of fun.
You're right, Carrie. It doesn't have to be hard. I mean, if you just sort of watch all of these things that have sort of come up organically, it's because of all the work that's been done. So we encourage everyone to come together for these activities. I wanted to also throw out I wanted to just say this. I've been walking around and I've been talking to folks, and I've gone to several places and I've said, "Oh my goodness, how excited are you about Vice President Harris?" And they go, "Who's Vice President Harris?" or who's Kamala Harris? And so that inspired me to come back home and get to work on some nuggets. And so I wanted Robin to sort of show us some nuggets that you guys can get. If you go to the Pro Shop, you can get these nuggets that are introducing folks to Vice President Kamala Harris, and they're fantastic. So take a look in the Pro Shop, get yourself some nuggets, no matter where you are, hand them to folks so that they can start to get excited and engaged about our vice president, who soon will be president.
So many people this week have been calling me, like the last 2 weeks. So many people. I know everyone at this meeting could probably say this, right? They all know you're politically engaged, right? So they're calling, emailing, texting. What can I do? What can I do? I feel like we have to engage them right now. We need to strike while the iron's hot. And those little nuggets are perfect because you want to give them something in their hand to remind them. Give them your email, give them this link to the Friday Power Lunch, because I have been telling a lot of folks, like, number one thing that you could do just to get started is come on the Friday Power Lunch. Do you know how many hundreds of people watch this thing that not Friday 12 to 1? I mean, there are so many people that access this on YouTube. People I don't even know were telling me about my Katie Britt skit. Like, people know to catch this, not just Friday 12 to 1. But why is that important? Well, number one, we're going to find each other, and new people need to find each other. And I know people in rural areas even more so, because it's not like you're going to be running into each other at the Dollar General because you don't have a Finale living in your neighborhood, because she's the one giving them out at the Dollar General. But this is a simple thing. And then they meet people, they get the links, they see what's going on, they hear the words, they see the cat t-shirts, and then they know how to be an organizer.
Exactly. And so Robin, I know we have 1 minute, but can you show the cat t-shirts that we love and that they're so popular and they're fantastic. And so here we go. So these are fantastic t-shirts, guys, and you will love them.
They're cute. And while we have this up, I just wanted to share something that you said, Finale, because I know you always liked a nice little wrap up in a bow for these. When we talked about Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we go high. And the other day you said, because we were all excited, when they go low, we go toe to toe, which is something a little different for us to try on, right? We're trying we're not in the weeds. We're not on the Maury Povich show throwing chairs at each other. We try to not go there, but it's feeling like we're getting a little pep in our step. Maybe it's okay to fight a little bit. It's a little, we're going to embrace our Kamala.
We're gonna embrace it, and so we're not going back. Tell me to my face what you have to say, because sometimes you just gotta say what it is. This is big, and we can't go back, because going back is just not an option. So I'm excited for us, and all I'm going to say is, that there are other people out there who are just a little bit weird, and so we don't want weird. And we all know what that is, right? So we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to encourage everyone to stay for the after chat. It's going to be so much fun. It is not recorded, so you can say what you want as long as you're nice, right? I know.
Shut your mouth.
So next week's show, just keep watching, and when we send out the updates, we'll tell you who's going to be on the show. So the Empowered Rally, August 25th, put that on your calendar. Next Friday, be here at 12 o'clock, be here or be square. And Robin, let's roll the credits.